We're going to work on the breath here before we begin the final, I believe, series, or not the final series, but the final installment of this three-part dedication to this amazing spot here, which was a family house for, I think, about 22 years or so. And the energy here is amazing. I've already covered that. And it's great that it's like 80 degrees here on a Sunday. Um, I'm finishing up a couple loads of laundry here because I don't like using the machine where I live. Questionable. Well, I'm not going to get into that. I just don't like using it. And this is going to be about loss because this morning is when the grief, which is a lesson, hit me. I'm walking around on this nice day, and it's really just about that backyard and about the feeling here. It's not about the rooms and a lot of my memories were with another property. So I was already like an adult basically when we moved in here. So it's basically just that access to the spirit energy here is amazing. And that's why I'm sitting in front of this window, which again was associated with an amazing supernatural phenomenon, which appeared right behind me there. And I think it's fitting to actually use this camera when I could have used a different one, because the graininess reminds me of VHS and certain experimental film type things I did on, it was called like a DVR. It was like partially digital, partially analog. And I like the look of this because this radiance, these beams here accurately capture what you would want to visualize when you're in a space like this. And this effect here from the low grade, whatever you call it, of the camera that's just built into the computer, the rays that are coming through. Well, there's no better visualization to when you sit in a space like this. You want to unlock this type of mist-like, substance. And you just want to imagine it going that way out of your head. Not that it matters what direction, but it's easier that way. Because then everyone can use the same visualization when they enter in to the spiritual space. And to do that, like we've done the past 2 times, again, there's no promotion here. I don't think anybody's watching this, but if you are, good for you. We enter in to the meditative space within the sacred site that's been worked on, and we say phrases. I choose to use the Rudolf Steiner phrases of "it works me, it thinks me, and it weaves me." And that's how we enter into this space that we will begin with a basic meditation that involves the synthesizer here. And it's different from the first 2. One's yesterday involved a sound bowl and also a soprano saxophone at one point. I understand that jazz music is not that popular to the mainstream audience. So I just did a quick little Coltrane-esque thing. It was spontaneous. I don't have that with me today. I do have a clarinet. I may bust that out. And then there could be a handyman coming here. And I'm not going to be doing this if he popped in at midnight last night when I was here. I wasn't expecting that, but he could be here, and then I'll have to stop this or maybe just go outside or something. I just don't want to interfere there. So I'm here for a couple hours, and the weather is great. And after this meditation, I will go sit out there. And again, what is the significance of this? There's no theatrics here. There's no promoting this. It's knowing there's a person in an activated space who has cleared their mind to the point where they can emit something that other people can jump into. And even if I'm sitting outside, just sitting there, this is a space that's open for service to others, even after it's been recorded and you go back to it. And to begin to clear the mind waves, I've chosen a basic repetition here. on breathing in and out and making sure the spine is somewhat straight. I like to get the blood flowing. Just moving your hands around your neck and around in a way that you normally wouldn't. Well, I can see someone just tuning into this going, what is going on here? What's going on with this strange man? Well, that's just it. You're not, you're supposed to just gravitate to places like this. And these are things about ascension that people don't talk about. You'll just be drawn to a certain person. Um, and there's an energy they radiate. There was a guy who I recently spoke to who had walked with Thich Nhat Hanh, if I'm saying that correctly, the great spiritual guy from Plum Village was his original creation, I believe, that then sort of spread around. I have a book of his called the Teachings of Buddha. It's been years. I have it in my bookcase, but that's not what I want to talk about. I want to talk about people that radiate different levels of this spirit energy, and then you visualize this. This is a great visualization. Still, I didn't realize the sun was going to stay like that. It's like you have access to this, and you can actually start to see it looking just like this, radiating off of people. The more you wake up to what you're here to do. And Thich Nhat Hanh, when he talks like this, very careful about what he says. A lot of times I can't speak that calmly, but it's more than just that. He's at he had been at a certain level where he was so calibrated that this guy that I met, who actually walked with him on some of those long journeys and did something like 40 days of silence, things like that. He was describing to me not really a story. It was more like an observation about how he was at some event and people didn't realize that Thich Nhat Hanh was coming out at this point, and a lot of people there didn't know who he was. I forget the exact context, but he was not expected at that time. And he started walking through this massive crowd. And this guy said that the crowd just started to part like just immediately part, and they didn't even know what they were doing. Like there was just the force of the man walking through up to this podium. And he described it a little better, but it was just an example of someone who has such a radiance that everyone was able to see this. People, like I said, they didn't know he was going to be on at that time. There was not even necessarily his crowd there. And so as we go through ascension, you'll start seeing people that have that type of effect, but you can see it, and you can detect these individuals. And as you embrace synchronicities, when they start to happen, to the point where you're saying, well, this is beyond a coincidence, once you start to embrace those synchronicities, when you start to wake up, it shouldn't be long before you adopt what Dr. Lynn Kaitai talks about in her book, where she doesn't believe in a coincidence. Once you start going down this path and you embrace the path of service to others, and you learn to polarize into the positive light, there will be no coincidences. So the meditations are a little strange, but it's being in the space and not having words to guide you. You use the tones and the basic analog synthesis here, which was different from the last two meditations. It might seem strange. Then I'm going to go outside and I have to flip the laundry over. But it's important to be in this space active, because it is an active space. And if you can link up with it somehow, that's amazing. There's no colored lights this time, because that was a little too theatrical. You want to focus on the natural effects. This is right on the line within a hotspot where things happen. There's two types of ways that you can gain strength from people that you are reaching out to spiritually. For example, Dave can give you strength now to pursue research or knowledge or service to others. And for example, Raymond Moody, last night when I was able to talk briefly with the man and sit there in a space for 2 hours, that'll give you strength. And something I've noticed, like with most unexplained phenomena, there are different variations of it at different times, almost like a time released thing. And I was mentioning how after someone passes, sometimes a relative will hear the voice clearly through electromagnetic phenomenon that's well documented. Or you might glimpse someone who recently passed, or you even know they did, and you see them, you saw them clear as day in public. This can, you can notice this when you contact people that are spiritually significant to you, and you've been working on it for a while. And for example, Raymond Moody, making that connection and having him, for example, thank me for telling him a brief story. The next day, you can see this and you can feel an extra bit of energy and awareness. And just like when someone passes, like when Dave passed, I'm sure a lot of his fans received something if they're open to that, and will now be led to actively pursue research that eventually leads them to their duties during this 26,000 year cycle. And, Mr. Moody, and when after a relative of mine passed away, I was jogging the next day and I was going up a hill that I was feeling a little bit not so confident about. Everything all of a sudden turned amber, red, and I had this type of energy that was ridiculous. And we all know that prana, there's different ways you can classify it, but you can access a heightened level of energy, and it's more than just that. There's a particular type of consciousness that involves, for me, the color red and amber right after someone passes. But in this situation, I was jogging and I went up this hill like if there was nothing even there. And then as I was going up the hill, I started to sense the perfume of this relative, like clear as day, and a couple other olfactory sensations like a household fragrance and things that were indicative of their personality, of someone who had lived with that person for a while, for years, what have you. And so I'm jogging up that hill, and then comes this boost of this prana. Everything gets amber, and I didn't even. This was the end of the workout, the end of the jog. And sometimes I'll finish the jog with an uphill situation, outdoor jogging. And I felt like I could keep going. And there was that presence, not just in the visual thing, it was in your physical uh, ability. One other thing too that I want to talk about, and so this is connected to Ray movie. These are all different ways you can access this positive spirit energy that you can pull out of aether. You can either go positive or negative. And you have to work through dedication to be able to polarize and have these types of experiences. Another time, right around after I put myself through a modern version of initiation, I was jogging once again without contacts or glasses because I was in between contact prescriptions. I don't like going into the place and having someone in your face like this, and they're going, is it this one? Is it that one? Is it this one? And they're like looking at you like that. It makes me laugh. And so I don't want, I always start laughing during the eye exam. So I avoid that. And I was jogging. And there's a lot of uphill and downhill around here in this part of Ohio. And I was going down this hill, and there's always a level of danger to this. And I always recommend break falling, learning how to break fall, which I learned in martial arts. It will save you, where you always hit the pavement like that away from your head. It has to become instinctive. But I'm getting off track. So I was going down there. Yeah, so there's a level of danger there, because you could always just fall right into the street. You have to be aware of everything. And that's why you don't really want to listen to music when you're doing outdoor jogging. And this is someone who's been doing this for like 15 years. I'm telling you, it's dangerous. So you want to stay focused. And so I had, I'm jogging downhill. There's the down grade, and I trip. And I had been actively working on the spiritual stuff. And once again, there's also a connection here about keeping trauma away from my head. Like I talked about the infection that was removed after seeing light phenomenon in a hot spot last night. And again, this is something that would have hit my head and also my shoulder. Like 8 years ago, I decided to get on a skateboard, in my 30s. And I went downhill, and there was an opening. It was night out. And the street lamps, there was a little section where it was out. And I'm like, you know what? I'm just going to wing it. I felt like I had visualized the downgrade, and there was a little hole, like sewer cap thing that was like, it didn't have the cap on it. And the board was going probably 15 or 20 miles. I don't know. It's where it starts shaking, and you have to, and I hit that thing and just hit the ground like that. But I was able to turn my shoulder, and I popped my shoulder out of the socket. Okay. That, if it would have been slightly different, it would have gotten my head, and that would have not been good. That would have been permanent. And it popped out of the socket in a 1 in a million way, where you have to have special surgery, which I never got. So there's kind of a deformment there. Well, not really. I mean, it's, 1 in a million dislocate. And again, these are the types, you have to start looking at these patterns, because something seems to intervene sometimes, as long as you're on the right path, when head trauma, at least I don't expect to get any more free passes, but it's happened so many times. I mean, when I was 14, I was in a car. We got a ride from somebody. We were 13 or 14 in a Delta 88. It was going down. These guys were like drunk. They started speeding, and the car flipped like this. I remember seeing the back seat. It was going really, really fast. I got scared. It went. And I remember it was in the air, and it went like this, and then landed, not upside down, but back like that. And everybody in the car was messed up. The guy had smashed a glass in his eye. I'm not going to get too graphic, but I just kind of got out, had blood on my shirt, and left. So how much intervention do you need before you start going, have I been being called my whole life? And someone like Wilcock, now you read Sourcefield Investigations, and you move on to that Wanderer stuff, and it's like, oh man, you can look back, and you're not confirming a bias. I mean, there's situations where they can start adding up, and these coincidences disappear. And this was going to be about grief and loss and embracing the grief and loss. And, and it still is in a sense, because I'm sitting here, I'm not being depressed. I'm embracing the positive energy of the location and hoping that it goes to someone else who has certain tuning abilities, and you could have proper male-female calibration. And I'm not even depressed at all. Like when I walked in here initially about an hour ago, there was a wave of some sort of like nostalgic, bittersweet depression. But now it's gravitating back to capturing the love that you can release from the light in areas like this. So I'm gonna continue this for a couple more minutes. Yeah, I gotta make sure to flip the laundry. So we'll go outside for a second. This is an experimental use of this live feature. I don't see myself doing that anytime soon. It's a fun little space to be in right now, though. You know, enjoying the sun. Not a big fan of pop music, so I don't really want to sit out there right now, but some neighbors listening to pop music. I enjoy instrumental music mainly. But, so, but we can enjoy the wonderful weather through the windows and having the. And later on, um, I'm going to jog. It's nice to get the body recalibrated um, with jogging. You know, sometimes if you're an outdoor jogger in Ohio, you have to take off some time. Unless you want to, well, after you get to a certain age, you have to watch jogging when there's ice on the ground. Uh, I give myself 2 falls and then I'm done. And I had fallen twice right as the snow and I started. So then I transition over to a cardio session of something that is never going to quite capture jogging, but you can get close to it. And doing things like hitting a punching bag, which you can now buy with ones you can just put on Amazon or something. You can order one. You can just put like old clothes in it and hang it up. It doesn't have to have sand in it. You don't even have to hit it. You can just almost make contact. And when you get that kind of cardio going, when you jump around too, that's important. When I did martial arts, we would jump around and do that stuff. It'll wear you down fast. If you ever hit a bag, again, you don't actually have to make contact with it. You can just almost touch it. You'll get the same cardio effect for the most part. And it's more like Tai Chi where you're harnessing and then you go a little slower and all that. You can really get some serious cardio going on there. Someone told me that it's good to mix up the type of cardio, like do sprints or something one day where your heart's starting, then it's stopping, then starting. I've never done that. I usually start jogging, then I don't stop. Of course, you stop if you don't feel right or something, but I'm not sure which variation is better. Sometimes I can see how mixing that up would help for people who may knock their heart off a rhythm occasionally. So I don't know. So we sit here, and in the last minutes, last brief time that we have in this space, we always want to recall the phenomena that appeared back there, and like basically right behind my head, and not just that, but the whole space here was shrouded in some sort of holographic time removal that I talk about. And I've actually had this happen at a hotspot location that was probably about 30 minutes from here with a person. And we had a similar experience where it seemed like a dome was covered around a certain perimeter that we were standing in. Like it could be measured or something. Like there's a common, I don't know. And we were able to witness things in there that I believe someone standing right outside of that wouldn't have seen. Like there's a holographic time shift where they could look over and maybe I was there, maybe I'm not. That happened here. And when it happened at this other place, I asked, that type of experience had already occurred for me a couple times. And being that I had another person there, I made sure to begin to ask a series of questions that's really important. Because for people that may have stumbled across this and have been in this particular consciousness shift when they're seeing phenomenon like right in front of you, or even in the sky, but it's better reference to have it right in front of you. You will have a loss of certain types of memory before and after, and you have to learn how to hold that together. But luckily, what happens inside that is easiest to remember. And to keep, early on, when I was gaining certain abilities, you start to wonder, you're going, oh man, I know I'm not hallucinating. I know what a hallucination is because I've taken hallucinogenics, and there's nothing wrong with me, and then when you can have someone else, and your guides will do this if you be patient, stand next to you and not just have phenomena happen, but have this intense, extreme holographic variation happen right next to you. You want to make sure to ask them a series of questions that just came to me. I was like, I agree with me that we just saw this. And then they say yes. And then you ask for permission. Can I write this down? Or maybe even just record your response if they'll be that cool about it. And then you ask them to repeat back what they saw. And this will help you as well as allow a form of documentation so that we can, so that you can begin to sort of understand what happens in a space where time hasn't even necessarily been removed. This is where I like Dave Wilcox, and he talked about Kosarev. It's hard to find information on Kosarev for a reason, because time, the substance, can be partially extracted or can be manipulated within a region, like a dome. And I'm sure people have experienced this. And I think there's something related to what I was talking about yesterday that I heard Raymond Moody discuss about these types of connections that family members will have to people who have had an NDE, near-death experience, where they might see them in a crowd, clear as day, or they might actually see them in their house sitting there. And I think there's a holographic thing going on there, where it's basically just the same thing that happened with me and that guy when we were under, and that happened here in this house, where you have a higher density being made of light, appearing or sending you information or allowing you to manipulate the holographic variations of some form of reality, meaning that like time is not completely extracted, because you still have to be able to have something in your mental data bank that can begin to make sense of something that you can't make sense about. And I really want to get that Zoom meeting with Dr. Moody and watch it again, because he was talking, he kept referring to that, like, because the synchronicities are, I'd been waiting to be in a space with this guy and actually talk to him, because even if it's just a question, when you link up with someone, like I was talking about earlier, that you've been trying to contact and who's inspired you, you will gain this extra level of awareness. And I felt it the whole day, even though there was some nostalgic grief when I came over here. I've still felt that spirit energy gain, not just from speaking with Raymond Moody, but also when Mr. Wilcox appeared in light form, geometric shape, 4 times, along with all these other light shapes that mean things, and you learn what they mean. Intelligent, moving, non-threatening, in various forms, on the ground, a couple feet off the ground, in the sky, never flashing. That should be the mantra for every time anything like that gets discussed, is the public needs to know that there are no threats from anything that's peaceful. They would never present themselves that way. Any sort of unexplained phenomenon would not present themselves in any sort of way that would have you scared. You know, that was made so clear to me. You know, I have to admit, I believe that part of a mystery teacher's discipline is you don't ask for anything uh, amazing to happen again. Or if you've seen something amazing, you don't go, "Oh, can I see that tonight?" You appreciate what you saw. You know that you saw it, and then most likely, it's going to happen again. You just don't. You have to be patient, But there are times when I walk out to that particular location. It's in a hot spot. There's different sections of the spot that are, let's just make it easy, hotter than others. Can do certain things that other sections can. There's always a kind of a scary section too. Just how it is. And those are guardians actually. That's a whole other topic. I've seen them. It's pretty weird. But so that appear, that these different sections of the spot, one of the first things that happened to me was the most amazing phenomenon. And this is how it happens. You get turned on. If you're willing to make the ultimate dedication to service to others and make certain sacrifices, you'll have an initial, after your synchronicities, you'll have an initial actual phenomenon appear to you. And then it will continue to do that when you pass certain stages. And this first time, I saw this transparent, blue-colored. That's a lot of times that's the first color you'll see. A peaceful thing. It was completely different from other times. Like I got turned around and the thing actually came from the sky, but it was clearly coming down towards me. And I'm going to be honest with you, I was not expecting that, And so for a brief moment, I got a little freaked out, but it was almost like an excitement as well. And I kind of started to shake. And I did actually have a camera with me back when I used to do that. And I don't do that anymore. And I started to film this thing, but it didn't even occur to me to zoom. I did have the night mode on and off, what have you. And it was very hard to film, because I wanted to look at it with my bare eye. Because when you see these things, they're see-through, but when you film them, they look like flames. And I want to make one correction. I was talking about DS things they do, and I said something about they'll throw the disclosure script will present fake orbs. What I mean by that is like large, threatening, usually flame-like orange, but they all look like that on film. So when you see them with your bare eye, phenomenon looks completely different. It could be a triangular shape. It could be just like a mist that moves. It could be an actual human, crystal clear image. But this was this shape that was blue, see-through, with a blue flame in the center. And it was approaching me, and then my hand is like shaking because I'm looking at it like this, okay? And then I'm filming. And it's one thing in the camera. The camera, it's not see-through and transparent. It's flame. But then when I hold it down, I'm looking at this thing, and it's a blue, elegant, peaceful, gliding spherical object. And so I'm holding the camera, and I have this footage. I never promote this stuff. That's why I didn't even promote this live stream. But I'm going like this, my hand's shaking, and I start to cry because of the beauty and the feeling. It was in my consciousness, and I'm shaking, and I'm weeping because it's the most beautiful thing I've ever seen. And you don't just see it, you experience it. This is why I just want to say one more time, you can never make a mistake like that. One gentleman, Chris Bledsoe, was caught worshiping a SpaceX launch. You don't make those mistakes. I'm going to drop that right there. But that's dangerous. You have to be careful with that. When you see these phenomena, or this beautiful, angelic presence, and it's right above you. I mean, it's very hard to prepare for something like that. And you know the organic nature of it. It's mingling with your consciousness, and you have this thing, and you're filming it, and you're looking in here, and it looks one way, and you're going like this, and it looks like something else. And so my hand's shaking like this, and I forget to even zoom, but it still looks good. It still looks elegant, gliding, and of course, no lights, no flashing anything. Okay, because to be in the sky, you got to blink and flash. Real phenomenon doesn't do that. And that's why the DS always has things that are flashing in the disclosure script, because they know that regular people will start to activate real angelic presence. And you can still find a couple of those clips where there's nothing blinking. So back to this consciousness factor, and you learn to connect as you're unwinding your spirit organ and you're engaging in mystery teachings. Like when you see this light around here, you learn how to pull out the positive light from the light. Steiner covers that. I'm not going to get into that. That's complex, but it's really not that complex. And that feeling that I remember from seeing this object above me, you can learn to capture that in regular light and in regular spaces that are sacred spaces. And this could be a cathedral. This could be a primordial mound. It could be a great pyramid. It could be a bent pyramid. It could just be stone circles. And those are major areas. And you can have lesser areas like this where it makes it easier to tap in to this energy. But I want to stay on point. When this entity who was approaching me was above me, and I began to get, I don't want to say scared, but when something is coming towards you from the sky, there is a brief moment where I think I'm going to go ahead and say I was a little freaked out, and it backed off. It backed off and leveled out. Slow, non-threatening, no fast movements, and glided away. And what I wanted to come back to was, yeah, there are certain times where, even though I can initiate and I see phenomenon all the time, that proximity, I felt like I could have reached up, like if I stood on a chair, even jumped up and touched it. I often think about that. And I did have a dream once, because when you're going through modern forms of initiation, there's a dream phase where I wrote Dave Wilcox about this, where you're pulled out of your body. And it's like you're going down this tunnel and something is done to you and you're stuck back in it, and you wake up and it's like the biggest jolt. I mean, I'm going to forget what I'm doing here. So, okay, well, that's the first time I forgot what I was talking about, but you know what? Let's just get this going for a minute. And we will remember Dave. It's almost the 20th. It'll be almost a month. Has it been a month yet? Is this 2 months? No, it's been 1 month, I think. Yeah. And we want to ignore, I haven't mentioned him at all, I think. I've been doing this for like over an hour. And we will mention Dave Wilcox because this space here, this time period, was a time period when he used to present the sizzle and make us laugh, while at the same time honoring all kinds of different spiritual beliefs. That's why he didn't get specific when he delved into esoteric talk. And he would often say, we don't need that. We don't need to go too far into esoteric language, and always loved his audience, and to the point where he actually put their names in a message that really was kind of a sign-off message, and it showed how much he cared about these people who were keeping him going. And there's many beautiful moments, in his show where he looks into the camera and he acknowledged his fan base as a family. And then the meditations towards the end, I commented a couple times, like they became so poetic, especially that one where he was talking about the bullet train coming to pick people up. Like I was in tears, and I believe that he reached a level where he is receiving this like cosmic poetry, and he actually was like channeling something. And go look at it for yourself. If you go back and look at those meditations, you can see for yourself there's something really special going on, and we have that, a whole library of that to go back and look at. Yeah, so there's a gentleman down there. Thank you if you're tuning in periodically here. And this is an example about people that gravitate towards proper calibration. This gentleman here obviously is getting it. You can just have this open on one of your browsers, and if you're able to tune and focus in on it, you're jumping into a space that's been calibrated and has a certain propagation of service to others energy, and you can maybe even receive some healing. The fact that there's no promotion makes it stronger. As we walk around this space, you take in the grief, and you connect with the memories. You take in the lesson. You embrace the grief, and it's not even grief. It's a beautiful thing to be able to look back and have enough time, have a collection of memories that go so far back that it produces that sort of bittersweet um, sadness, not to be confused though with sadness. In here, because of the property having this special release of service to others access, and it's medicinal. That it comes in waves. It's like you become sad for a moment, but it's not like real up and down. It's sort of a leveled out acceptance. And you have to go through that. You have to go through the acceptance. And it's not just, it's the memories of the person that lived here that passed too. It's like a giant artifact of them. But that's the lesson. That's the lesson of impermanence. You have to reduce your trinkets. You can't fill up your entire space with someone who passed away. You have to mediate that, and keep those memories in your head and write down, journal, so you can pass things on in case you develop a cognitive dysfunction. And, and you can recreate traditions, obviously, that you did in that living space and try to pass on the traditions of that living space. And I don't think it's good to start totally new. You want to remember the other spaces you lived in and bring them with you in an essence, Hearing sounds like that is definitely strange because we're programmed to hear mainly 4/4 rhythms with the chorus, verse, the chorus meant to usually sell something. If the music is compartmentalized, it's almost by effect meant to sell something, and that's okay, But hearing regular tones in a step sequencer of less than 16 steps on repeat, it's a good way to honor analog synthesis, simple electronic sounds, and electronic sounds that are controlled by a human from a circuit board. It's not taking over, maybe a little bit with echo, but it's not. You're in control of these waves. And the sound waves can guide you a lot better, usually, than words. And if you have something like a basic synthesizer that has faders, you can slide the faders up and down and fade out those particular waves. Like yesterday, I was talking about birds and how you can single out certain sounds. It could be water dripping, the birds outside. And the more you just focus on that and pull back from everything else, it allows you to gradually descend into awareness and out of the material world. And this is actually a good method I've done before, where you have a basic step sequencer that replicates classic analog sounds. In this case, it's the Juno, I believe, the Roland, and they're all Roland sounds. So the replication is from that company. So it's not much of a replication. It's sort of a miniaturization of an authentic synthesizer sound. So you're not hearing anything but this one emission, and you can control the waveforms to a certain degree. When you decondition yourself out of hearing a pop song, what would originally seem annoying and repetitious then takes on a mantra-like effect, hence the reason mantras are used. And becoming familiar with those type of tones is essential for calibrating your mind how you need to be to receive certain phenomena and access other levels of consciousness and keep it there. $2. I was given this for free. This is like the cheapest clarinet on the market, but I was given it to test out for free. And I mean, you know. Yeah, it kind of accidentally shows the synth sound from The Shining. Didn't mean to do that. So I think it's kind of important to hear sounds like this. Three tones right there. Just switched it to three tones. It's done within that synthesizer that was used in a couple of the Kubrick movies. Many others. So we'll come sit in another room here. Let's see here. That's the one thing about this place is there's a great backyard, but the privacy level is just ridiculous. People seem like they're right in your backyard. So yeah, this was the room here that I stayed in, and it's strange. Like I don't remember it that much. Like I remember those windows. I remember sitting there in the corner listening to music. This has since been turned into my sister's grandkids' room from when they were here, but not anymore. And it seems like it seems like the paint stayed the same. I always liked this blue color in here. And it seems like they went further with it with this blue over here. And I used to go into these closets here and pad them out and do recordings. So you could walk in there and pad them out back when I was a teenager. And this one too is would have equipment in it, and you would go in there. It's back in when I was a teenager. Like if you had a tape deck, a tape Tascam recorder, like you were like, oh man, I got this. You can come over and record, man. I got this set up, and you would hand them a tape. It would have buzzing in the background because or at least the one I used always had that. They would eat the tape. Like you would have an awesome uh, song. You'd be like, "This is it. This is it." And I want to add something to it. And then you try to add something to it, and all of a sudden it gets eaten. We did, a lot of work for home recordings before AI technology. And, technology will never be able to capture the certain sounds of room dimensions. Like when Captain Beefheart, probably not the greatest example, but it kind of is, because when he did Trout Mask Replica, he was able to get that sound by positioning himself in, I think it was Frank Zappa's studio in certain areas. Like he'd be in the bathroom or something, like with recording devices outside. And that whole art form was appreciated when when you were a teenager and had a closet like that with your little foam padding, which I later found out is a fire risk. But so this is it. We're just sitting here in a space of memory, and someone could tune in and have no idea what's going on. Probably anybody, and you're sitting in a space that meant a lot to you, and being there to sort of release it from your life and have it stay there in the memories, and if there's anything more natural in life, it is letting go and embracing the grief or the space. Here, this is hard because it's such an active region, with where it happens to be positioned, for people that have a heightened sense of spiritual consciousness, they walk around in places like this. And it's like walking around in I don't want to use the term ether, but it's like a substance. And even if you see, for example, like air everywhere, like a lot of people do that have woke up to third eye capabilities, here it's like just a loving presence, you know. In any kind of hot spot area, people will always like to say, "Oh, it's haunted. I heard a voice. There's something in the basement." That's just because of our mythologies and not understanding proper calibration. Like when I first moved in, yeah, I had haunting problems. And once you calibrate yourself, there is no more haunting. That's what's so important about not messing around with uh, areas that are widely considered haunted. So it really is. It's a collection of negative thoughts that have manifested and become something. And there's information there. And the more people feed into that, the worse it gets. You can, for example, like remove poltergeist. You can do that yourself. I think I did a video about that like 2 years ago, but I'm not a content producer. So one reason I'm going live for like 4 hours here is just to remember this location and to create a space for people to also remember. And for those tones, you have to be able to decondition yourself from pop music. Nothing wrong. And even with jazz, you know, like it's if I'm gonna listen to like say some Steely Dan or something like that, or some other kind of pop or soul music or something like that, some Randy Crawford, you know, uh, Isley Brothers or something. I make a whole day for that, so my consciousness can receive segmented music like that. It's not simple. That doesn't mean anything. It's not. There's nothing intellectual and related to that. You just have to learn to remove your mind from compartmentalization of music in 4 minute increments, 5 minute increments. So I'll have like Soul Day, where I'll listen to like um, what's the guy that just that just passed, D'Angelo or something like that, you know, and or Mono Neon or something like that. And then even though that's also complex, you know, the next day will be the day where it's just like Coltrane, Eric Dolphy, and that's mainly what I listen to, that kind of stuff. But there's no way that you'll be able to really appreciate instrumental music if you're um, listening to the same 60 songs I've been playing for years. You know, it's like when I walk around in public, it's like everybody's hypnotized. They're listening to these jingles. You know, they're the same like 20 songs. And I can go as far as to say that I used to work weddings, you know, when I used to be in the hotel business. And it was the same songs. You know, it's like everybody's memories are attached to these same 60 songs, and you can liberate yourself from that and still enjoy uh, well-written songs like the Beatles or something, like Gordon Lightfoot or something like that, and but never be weirded out by mantra like repetition. And the proper repetition is what you hear in commercial media. Little tones like this are vital to not allowing it to annoy you. I didn't think I was going to be here this long, but looks like they took the clock. That's good. So they're leaving most of the stuff for some sort of like property sale, not the records. And this clock that was back here has been around, like that was back there, had been around my whole life, and it had this chime that doom 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 doom. Well, you know, I don't even remember what that. It's a common chime, you know, and uh, over the years, it didn't quit working, but the chime like slowed down or something. Like it was like a tape recording in there, and it um, became drawn out, sort of like a strung out version of. That's probably the greatest word to use, but there's a way where you can circuit bend, you know, this the circuit board it's on to do that with a dial, you know, that's used in synthesizers. And I accidentally did that one time. It was the one and only time I tried to circuit bend. I circuit bended successfully a one of those alphabet machines from the 80s, and I had a potentiometer attached to it. And I was able to manipulate the sounds like that clock did from aging and, you know, slow and speed up the words. And then I went and decided to go one step further and attach the circuit to some node, and I fried the whole thing. But I learned about potentiometers and how you can take a sound and stretch it out and slow it down. And that clock that was back there, which is apparently still being used, is like it's aged with everybody else. It's now the same chime, but it's slow. And It used to be in the living room. Then when they moved here, that it got moved down to this is kind of like a workout office area. So what this is, again, there's no theatrics here. People who are on a spiritual path need to learn to calm their minds and just be there in a space, in a hospice space, is a great way to just step into a house like this and or a property and begin to see and feel that light that light workers, term gets thrown around a lot, can experience. And you can shift your consciousness into another level. And I'm not talking about uh, taking psychedelics. I mean, it seems like that helped me a little bit when I was a teenager in my 20s, and I stopped it. Once you learn the lesson, like Ram Dass would say, like, you should be done with that. And when I say expand your consciousness, I mean you enhance yourself in a way that's consistent with ancient depictions of figures that you would see like on a wall of a pyramid. You can just look at some of those symbols and kind of already know what they mean, especially in relation to initiation ritual and terms like bridal chamber, uh, wedding chamber. It's about going into an initiation chamber and engaging in resurrection, like Freddie Silva talks about, which was an ancient ritual that got twisted around by the powers that be, Roman Catholic Church, and it became a man rising from the dead, from a cave. No, he's switching around of a process. And this process is now available in a modern variation. And when you work in hospice and you learn to pull out the spiritual light from the light, like I talk about, you'll start to understand, uh, like I was talking about with Raymond Moody in my questionnaire. I said that I understood what a psychomantium was, and what scrying was, because he was talking about that. And you start to just understand these ancient methods and their purpose. Slow it down to one tone and get ready to wrap this up, because I have to exercise and make sure to keep consistent with that, because diet and exercise is essential to keeping that piezoelectricity active. And I've said this, having your body and mind work like the stones inside the pyramids, which were filled with crystals, the symbols of the rooms, the sarcophagi, the dimensions of the doorways, the acoustics, and the stone itself is a lesson about piezoelectricity and how to have that proper flow of electrical, chemical, and ether flowing properly. Diet, consistent exercise, minimum of a half an hour of cardio. can keep it at an hour, 45 to an hour. And there is a small sentiment. And what I mean is there's a small amount of regret that I didn't do some kind of promotion for these 3 days where I could have talked to people about loss, but I don't know how to do that in this pop culture YouTube medium. Like I don't, without accidentally polarizing the service to self uh, negative, because this can't be entertainment. You know? But there is an energy here, and regardless of it being live or recorded, you can jump into the stream as long as you believe you can, and you will gain access to being able to utilize healing light at some point if you apply the proper dedication and discipline and sacrifice towards genuine service to others. And will you make mistakes? And will the path become difficult? Will you fall off the path by being sucked into nihilistic thoughts, pessimistic thoughts? Yeah, I mean, that's part of the journey. Everyone's susceptible to that. But once you get to a certain point and you've seen phenomena of entities that are alive and outside of a body, all of that goes away. And it's only awareness. And awareness is always saturated with a drive to have other people see what's going on here and see the potential to have your planet actually move collectively to another phase. And it's not done through entertainment. It's not done through a Dr. Greer C5 contacting negative entities in a group. It's done by yourself initially and with a small group of people. One person has a greater effect than a large group of people that have hidden agendas. And am I saying that something like well, I'm going to stop right there. And I will conclude the honoring of this space here with a meditation with a couple tones. And that'll be that. Select few out of thousands who come across this. Select few understand that the light behind me is lined up on a grid line. A phenomenon has popped into this dimension. Right people come across this video with no tags. I asked to jump into the stream and receive the healing spirit particles from the light, such as the light surrounding me, behind me, and understand that the truth about mysteries are supposed to be obtained from an individual at some point when they are inside a soul container. This existence has a purpose. You see everything the same way you see yourself, assuming you're living within a healthy moral landscape. Real living can begin. Meditation is a discipline, a pathway, a sacrifice. The problem of evil requires serious-minded students. And with that, my refusal to promote myself, let's see if I can show a clip or two of Dave to include the Dave tribute theme. Oh, that's great. My phone's breaking. This is not going to work. Oh, maybe it will. Just going to remind people of this here.
Awesome lightning contact. Before my stepmother passed away, we saw a purple sphere. Purple sphere was that for her. Usually see blue or gold. Yeah, I would say definitely if you're getting a light phenomenon around the time of someone's passing, that's either their soul or it could be their higher self, which operates in violet ray. I'm glad you brought that up. We're also talking about these different chakra levels, and we're going to keep weaving in these topics. This is spherical thinking. The way I'm carrying up.
Yeah, I have no idea if you can show an image from a phone on. I have no idea how that works. Let's see.
Breathing in the warmth and security of knowing that all is well. Feeling the light around us. Knowing that ascension is possible and our DNA can transform. Like the frog eggs transform into salamander eggs, like this cosmic galactic geometry. As we hit the corners of the geometry, we're having massive upgrades of all life on Earth, and that is happening again. Our DNA is expanding.
It's just a blob of light. That's actually appropriate.
5,000 years. And it's all leading up to this moment of concrescence, this incredible awakening where we simultaneously have an ascension, get to meet our galactic brothers and sisters. And they have been here all the time. While we thought we were alone, while we were laboring in the darkness, believing ourselves to be lost and drift, without spiritual support that we need, now we find out that we have a family, this galactic brotherhood and sisterhood that is finally returning to the earth. They say once the shock of the surprise wears off, we quickly learn to enjoy this new life. In the grandest sense, they want you to remember that you are the light, you are the love, you are one infinite creator. This is as it was, as it is now, as it always shall be. Just let yourself relax, feel that gentleness, understanding as we breathe deeply that patriarchal structures that have been in place for such a long time, camouflaging themselves, not revealing their true identity. People don't even understand what is happening. That control system, that matrix, that grid that is keeping us in a labyrinth prison is being moved to the side. Expanding your heart space, opening up to loving, resonant energies of an intelligent, conscious universe. The glory of breathing in pure light, pure awareness, prana then transforming every cell in your body, bringing you to a state of ecstatic entrancement, activating dormant potentials that lie deep within your DNA. The opportunity to ride the spiraling tunnels of light, to live life without the fear that so plagues most of those here, feeling that radiance, that glow, the activation of your inner potential, the decimation of that which holds you back from true unity consciousness, full understanding of what it means to be free, to live your life without the encumbrances of worry and fear. Oh my God, what's going to happen? Oh my God, the headlines are so scared. Letting go of that and moving into trust, moving into understanding, recognition of the true glory of that indwelling presence of infinite love awareness that is what made you and what you always will be. Because nothing and no one can ever take that from you. Expanding with your breathing, expanding into this glorious, wonderful awareness. Feeling that moment of resonance, that moment of shimmering clarity, and finally the bizarre random lifting up your finger, lifting it up, feeling it going higher and higher and higher, and And then all of a sudden, boom, let it drop. Feel that cool, relaxing water. You are adrift in the waters of spirit. You are living in the glories of that promise kept. Promise that you too shall be one with me, says the Creator. You shall rise. You are not bound by your own limitations. You are not bound by the suffering that defined you in the past. You will become more than you ever thought possible, because this is the way that the universe has designed you. You're designed to be transformed. You're designed to be uplifted. You're designed to be transfigured and brought into a higher definition of yourself. And there is nothing wrong with doing that. It's actually a very wonderful thing. All of these things come to us because we are ready to receive them. We are ready to receive love. We are ready to receive hope. We are ready to receive blessings. We are ready to receive our own transmission of higher consciousness. And we know in the greatest sense that we are the light. We are the love. We are the one infinite creator. This is as it was, as it is now, and as it always shall be. I had to, Daddy, don't upset him. I had to polish my glasses because thanks to your dirty hands, these glasses are all filthy, but now I can see just fine, okay? So don't heckle your dear old daddy for the love of God. I put lip balm on because I have a serious commitment to quality here, boy. God. And your mother, please don't get me started about your mother. I could write a whole book. Everything bad is because of your mother.